Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Giles, and I'm back for another episode of 40 Under 40. Hey, we have had the pleasure of talking to so many dope, amazing artists who are under the age of 40 doing some amazing things in the arts. And they are people of the global majority. You know what I mean? And so we have yet another amazing artist today who is taking the dance world by storm. This brother is a dancer, choreographer, leader, all that stuff. I want you to help me welcome all the way from the great city of New York, Mr. Antuan Byers. Antoine, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me on, Giles. I'm
For
honored to be here.
sure. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're honored to have you, and congrats on being one of our 40 under 40.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Again, it's an honor to be on this list with some incredible creatives. So thank you. I appreciate it.
for sure, for sure. So, let's talk about how your path to where you are right now. So let's talk about where you are now. So you're in New York. What are you doing in New York now?
Yes, so I am a dancer, creative entrepreneur, and arts activist based here in New York City. So I'm a freelance dancer performing primarily with the Metropolitan Opera Ballet, but I also work with a lot of different companies, and I'm on the road traveling, working with different artists. I'm also a model signed with Stets Modeling Agency. So a lot of my time is also spent in front of the camera doing different modeling campaigns with different global brands. I'm also the founder and CEO of Black Dance Changemakers, which is a relatively new platform designed to unite and uplift Black identifying dancers through leadership, education, service, and community building. I'm also on the board of governors of the American Guild of Musical Artists, which is AGMA, which is one of the major performing arts unions nationally. So yeah, I think that's like the short and sweet on kind of some of the big things I'm working on here. But I've kind of built this life that isn't just a performance career, but it's also something that's built in being creative outside of the studio, arts activism, which is something that's always felt important in my life as an artist. I never just was doing art. There was always an element of activism, of being Black, of having these conversations about how these things intersect and work together. So that's kind of where I've landed here in New York City and the things that I'm working on right now.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's talk about the Metropolitan Opera Ballet.
Yeah,
Historically, you don't see people that look like you and I on that stage.
right.
How has that been, and how do you bring your arts activism to that platform?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I think it's a very important one. So there haven't been a lot of people on that stage that look like you and I. One of the most famous principal dancers there was Janet Collins, who was the first Black principal dancer, one of the first in the United States, but the first at the Metropolitan Opera. So I definitely stand on some mighty shoulders of people that have paved the way and created space for me to exist at the Met. I started in the Met at 2016. I was actually still a senior in college at Fordham University. And from there, I got one show, and it's a pretty competitive job to book. So I honestly went in like to get cut just for the experience, just go in, say I went, honestly, just to get to miss school for a day because we got our absences excused if we were auditioning. But I ended up booking it. And then I ended up getting several other productions. And I'm actually this season will be my 11th opera at the Metropolitan Opera
Wow.
since 2016. And two of
Wow.
those years were a pandemic. So I've been
Wow.
fortunate to have a very busy and exciting run at the Met. But to answer your question directly, there's not a lot of us there. I think that we've been fortunate enough to see different stories like Porgy and Bess and Fire Shut Up in My Bones on those stages, which are representations of different parts of our cultures. But I think it's important to name that it's only certain parts of our cultures. And sometimes there's even mishaps with how those stories get told. And that's also just a product of only being able to tell two of our stories out of the hundreds of repertory that we have at the Met. So I did kind of want to just flag that. But those productions are very exciting, and we're grateful to have those. I actually haven't been in either of those productions. So there's
Okay.
actually Black artists at the Met who exist outside of those shows, who are doing the Bohèmes, who are doing the Magic Flutes, who are doing the Carmens and the Aidas. Well, Aida is a Black show, should be anyway. But anyway, that's another conversation.
Right.
But to get to your question, I was actually on the Mets negotiating committee this past year.
Okay.
And for folks who don't know what that is, when you're a part of a union, specifically AGMA, we have across the table conversations with our side, which was AGMA, and the other side, which is the Met. So even though the Met is my employer, when it comes to negotiations, it's kind of separated like that. And we were able to get about 4 pages of gains within our contract that are specifically targeting issues around diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Wow.
The most popular, letters in the alphabet over the past 2 years.
Exactly.
But we have specific language in there about how to get more people to the Met, and then when they get there, how to retain those people and those artists at the Met. And it's about seeing our stories on stage and that experience of like the performance of it. But performing is about this much of what us as artists do in preparation for that moment. So it's also creating safe ways of working, safe ways of rehearsing, creating policies that create safe studios for people to show up. And I keep using this word safe because I think that sometimes when it comes to racial issues, it doesn't always get viewed as safety. But for people like you and I, when we go to work, these are safety issues. How I'm viewed, how I'm treated in the space actually has an effect on my health and my mental health and sometimes my physical health. So it's really important that we kind of view these things through that lens of safety because one, that's how you get people like your union to listen and your boss to listen, right? When it's safety, not when it's racial stuff. But I'm actually really proud that I was on the committee of AGMA, being able to tangibly make those changes throughout our union. So our contract that we drafted has been used by several opera and ballet companies around the nation as a guide of how to include language within these contracts. So yes, I'm also in the union. We created a Black caucus as a way to identify and connect the Black members of AGMA. Before that moment, we didn't know who they were. We didn't have information where you could check a box to self-identify. So it's literally been an uphill journey of just trying to identify out of the 7,000 members of AGMA, who's Black, who's of color. It's kind of wild, right? So like, just on that piece, how are you going to help people if you don't know who they are and if you don't know how to identify them? So that was that was a kind of a big turning point in conversations with AGMA about the union saying that they wanted to move this stuff forward and push these conversations, but where's the tangible work? You don't even know who we are. So yeah, that was kind of a long answer, but I feel like it connected a few of those dots.
It connected all those dots, man. I love it. I love it. And I love that you are forcing accountability. I love the fact that you are not just resting on the laurels of I've made it to this stage, both figuratively and metaphorically. But I made it to this point, and I'm okay. I've made it. I don't have to worry about those who are behind me and what the future looks like. But say, hey, let's stop. Let's talk about. You say you want change. Okay, this is what change should look like, and how we're going to get it there. I love it. I love it. Speaking of change, man, you talked about Black dance change makers.
Yes.
What is this? I love the whole name. Tell me about it.
Thank you. So Black Dance Changemakers started last year in 2020, or I'm sorry, 2 years ago. Wow. That's wow. This is my first interview talking about it. I'm like, wait, that was 2 years ago. In 2020, at the height of the pandemic that we're still in and racial uprisings that we've kind of always been in, where it was actually on June 1st. If you go check your Instagram, you probably got a black box on it because that was the day where we all put black boxes on our Instagram to stand in solidarity with the Black community. But what that felt like to me was a silencing. I felt like my voice, I felt like I didn't have space to express myself. It felt like we were just trying to block it all out. And that isn't necessarily the best way for me to heal. And sometimes people like me and in community with me. So I literally texted every Black dancer I could think of in my phone and said, hey, y'all want to hop on a Zoom? Y'all good? What's up? Y'all need to talk? What's going on? So we did that. We hopped on a Zoom. We had an iMessage group. And that's when I found out that you can't have more than, I think it's 20 people or some 50 people in our iMessage group. So then we had to move to WhatsApp. But we were having Zoom meetings every week where we were just talking about everything. We were talking about being a Black dancer when it comes to education, being a professional Black dancer, both in concert world, but also commercially, being at the front of the room as a director, choreographer, being a dance writer, a filmmaker, just really how our Blackness intersects in all of these different ways. So we did that from June until I think it was like September. And we had meetings every week, just talking about everything. And for me, it came to a moment where, one, I wanted it to extend outside of my contact list. I knew that I didn't know every Black dancer on the planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And two, I needed to sort of formalize it in a way so that it could be sustainable. It couldn't just be me creating a Zoom meeting every week, right? Because
Right.
as life started to happen and things started to open back up, that just wasn't the most sustainable model.
Right.
So that's when I gathered a group of Black women in the field, and we created Black Dance Changemakers. And I was purposeful in choosing Black women and femmes to help lead this movement, as I think historically they've definitely been at the front lines of a lot of our racial and social justice movements.
Mm-hmm.
So we started that, and in our first year, we had about 100 events virtually, which was a lot. Yeah. Our model has shifted a little bit. The world has kind of opened up. Well, the world has opened up a lot
Mm-hmm.
more. But we had time on our hands and we had some change to make. So we had about 100 different events, sometimes with different artists in the field coming in to create space for conversations and exchange in that way. Different workshops on things from budgeting to investing to how to set up a schedule, auditioning, all things that kind of feed us as artists and dancers.
Right.
So the platform isn't a performance platform. It isn't a platform where you can sign up for dance classes. There's
Mm-hmm.
plenty of those out there. I can point
Mm-hmm.
anybody listening or watching to the right direction, but it's
Right.
really a platform for those things that happen in between. When you're in between dance classes, those conversations, after you go to a dance show and you want to talk about what you just saw on that stage, when you go out to drinks with friends, it's
Mm-hmm.
really creating space for community, which is really what we remember, right? As performers, we don't remember the steps we did, the lines we said. I mean, we might for muscle memory, but we
Right.
remember the people we did it with and the experience
Yeah.
that we had. And Black Dance Changemakers is a platform really highlighting that, and really trying to expand and empower our community and connect people. And like everyone wasn't fortunate to like grow up in Dallas, start at T-Ball, go to Dallas Black, go to
Mm-hmm.
Ailey, be in all of these Black institutions. I mean, I ride those intersections on a weekly basis. I dance at the Metropolitan Opera, which is a predominantly white institution, but I
Mm-hmm.
used to dance for Ailey Second Company. And I also occupy spaces that are predominantly Black. So I really see what it's like to really live in the middle of that, as many of us artists do, because most
Mm-hmm.
people aren't fortunate enough to be in a Black space all the time.
Right.
And if we zoom out a little bit for the people that aren't in Dallas or New York or LA or Chicago, if you're the only Black professional dancer in a company, you might be the only Black professional dancer in your city. So that
Mm-hmm.
need for connection is really
Mm-hmm.
important.
Right.
So that's kind of the journey of Changemakers. Right now, we host an annual retreat each summer. Last year it was virtually. This year it's going to be in person. We're
Right.
actually about to start announcing that stuff in a few weeks, so be on the lookout for that. But it's really just a platform to bring people together, to empower them, to leave space for conversations and questions that often, because of the structure of our economy, our industry, our world, there's a lot of barriers for connection for artists and dancers. So we're really just trying to knock down as many of those walls as we can.
I love it, man. I love it. That's amazing. Amazing. I have so many questions, but I'm gonna focus. I'm gonna focus. So what was it like to dance with the legendary Alvin Ailey? Yeah, in that company, because that's a coveted role.
Yeah.
No matter which company you're in. I mean, even to take class at Ailey is something that people like. They would give a leg and an arm. I remember Melissa Young, who's now the artistic director at Dallas Black Dance Theater, talked
Yes.
about taking classes at Ailey, like begging her mom to go to Ailey for a summer intensive. So talk to me about what was that like?
Yeah. Also, shout out to Melissa. That's
Yeah,
one of my first teachers at Dallas Black, and Nicole and the whole Dallas Black
I
family.
love Nicole. Yeah,
Yeah, that's another place that, like, in addition to T-Ball and Derek Whiters, just to throw out a few
yep,
other names, I
yeah.
wouldn't be where I'm at without those people that planted seeds and continue to
Mhm.
nurture me to this moment. So I just wanted to shed some, and you too, Giles, right? You were one of my first theater teachers.
Yeah, I
And
was.
let me do a quick brain scan. My first Black theater teacher,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
So I think it's really important to name and honor the legacies of those who have kind of created a path for us to even
Mhm.
be in these places. So
Right.
shout out to all of y'all. But yeah, I mean, Ailey, it was a dream come true. I mean, I grew up dancing and everybody said you should be an Ailey, but I'm like, what else are you telling Black boys that dance who are
Right.
tall? I mean, yeah, of course I should be an Ailey. So I fought it for the longest, but I remember my senior year, the Ailey company came to Dallas, to the ATT pack. And I was working as an usher there, so I always got free tickets to the shows, or I got to work the shows, which meant I got to see the shows.
Right.
So I went to every Ailey performance, and I remember on that program, there was Grace and Revelations. Grace is by Ron K. Brown, and Revelations is by, of course, Alvin Ailey.
Right.
Now, if there was ever a program to see, that was the one to see. Like after that, I mean, it was just outside of Dallas Black and being in Dallas, I had never seen dance on that scale from people that looked like me.
Right.
It was a melting pot of all of my different dreams of being around people like me, dancing at a high level, getting to travel, getting to see the world. I saw myself up, and that's what I wanted to do. So I kind of, in that moment, I was in between programs. That was my senior year. I was choosing between Ailey Fordham, NYU, a lot of other programs, scholarships. I'm grateful were being thrown my way. But after that performance, everything was clear. I knew where I needed to be. And I went to Ailey Fordham, did their BFA program. My senior year, while dancing at the Met, I was also an apprentice with Ailey too. And then once I graduated, I was accepted into the main company, Ailey too. And I toured the world for 2 years. It's a 2-year contract. It's meant to be kind of a training company that creates a bridge between the student and professional. So within my 2 years in the company, got to see the world domestically and internationally. We were in France, Germany, Spain, Poland, everywhere around the United States. I mean, I really got to connect with people and see the world and bring arts to a larger stage and audience that might not always get to see it. And that also kind of expanded that passion in mine with connecting with different communities. But there's nothing like being in that building, dancing with one of those companies. It's still a dream to be in the Ailey company, the first company for sure. That's still definitely a dream of mine. Because it's where I feel like I should be. And it's a hub for, I think, some of the most beautiful Black artists. So being surrounded by them, getting to take class with the first company on a daily basis as a member of second company, getting to build relationships with people like Matthew Rushing, the incomparable Matthew Rushing, the director Robert Battle, Francesca Harper, who's now the director of Ailey 2, Melanie Person, who was the director of the school, who brought me in and made sure I had everything I needed. Being a part of such a nurturing community was definitely a blessing, both as an academic in the institution, but also as a performer in Ailey too. Leaving Dallas, where I had such a family and a community, that kind of pushed me. It was really nice once I landed in New York to kind of have that cushion of a community. So it was work, it was a job, but it was also more than that to me. It was really a community of people who had a shared mission, and that was really sharing dance and arts with the world authentically in our skin. It's also not a privilege that we get to have in every job we do. So I love working for Ailey for sure.
Very true. It's so funny. I saw Ailey for the first time when I lived in New York. They were at City Center, and I went, and Revelations. I mean, you can hear about it, you can watch it on video, and I've seen 3,000 times on video. But watching it live, it's us. It's us all day.
And it's so timeless. I mean, Revelations has been around for more than 60 years at this point.
60 years?
It's the most seen modern dance work in the world. No, that's a fact. I mean, they do Rev every night. I did Rev every night. I probably did Rev 80 times in 2 years when I was in Ailey too.
Wow.
So it's a timeless work that I think really highlights the human condition. And it really frames it. It starts with Pilgrims of Sorrow, which is like that down and out experience that all of us have probably experienced. But then there's that middle baptismal, which represents a transformation, right? And then there's the celebration at the end. So it is rooted, obviously, in Ailey's experience growing up in Bryan, Texas. But it's a really universal message about transformation and kind of overcoming hardships that we experience. So it was definitely a gift to get to perform that work.
We don't talk about, and I didn't realize until you just said it. We never talk about Ailey being from Texas.
Oh yeah, I always talk about it. Okay, I mean, I always bring it up. But
wow. Yeah, I'm gonna drop that to everybody I know. By the way, Alvin Ailey is from Texas. By the way,
Bryan, Texas, he sure was.
Wow. So, changing subjects a little bit. We often talk about the triumphs and the successes that we have. Can you talk to us about a challenge that you had in your career and how you overcame that?
Yeah, let's get into some things. Let me see. I mean, I think an easy general kind of answer for that, or an umbrella answer, is just really being a freelance dancer in New York. You're
Mhm.
constantly playing the game and having to prove yourself, and you're constantly having to audition.
Right.
So I think there's times where they say when it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's a drought on the other end of that. And I think in those moments of drought, it's just really remembering kind of where I came from and how at every turn I always made it through those moments.
Mm.
And I think for me, I mean, and this is recent. I mean, in the past few weeks, I had 3 weeks off with no gig, and I felt like my world was about to end, you know? And that was 3 weeks. That's like a vacation. But um, it's really just one thing that I do and visualize and try to help people when I'm speaking to them is like, fast forward 30 years, 40
Mm.
years. A lot of the things that we're worrying about won't matter than this moment. So
Yeah.
as much as I can put myself in that position and look back, that kind of helps push me forward. For instance, whenever money is funny or whenever I'm worried about something like that, I know that in 40 years, I'm not going to be worried about this $500 that I needed on January 27th.
Right.
Right. So now what feels important is, okay, I know where I'm at now and I know where I'm going to be then. And that's all right. So
Mhm.
what are some things that I can do tangibly in this moment to help me get to that moment?
Yeah.
And it's real. Like, it's like, I know I would be fine. I know I
Mm.
would get some money. Like, because it happens every time.
Exactly.
To this moment, anything that's happened, we always found a way.
Right.
So I think that that's something I try to lean into, even as unbelievable as the situations may seem, because this is always easier said than done. But I think it's really just what's always worked, and that's faith,
Mhm.
and that's continuing to show up and continuing to push forward. And if we
Right.
keep doing that, we have a track record of infinity, the beginning of time, that has showed us that that will keep everything in alignment and keep everything moving forward. So I just try to kind of tap in and remember that.
Man, you're dropping jewels today, dropping jewels. I hope y'all are picking these up because I'm like, I wish I could just write down like, oh, he said this, he said that. Yeah, that's dope though. But that's also very inspiring of like how to handle that challenge. Like if you look, I love that you said that. Look in 20, 30 years, you're not going to remember that one light bill that you need the money for. It's
Listen,
gonna, like, I was in New York and I was living life, you know?
right, exactly.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. What's next for Antuan Byers? What's the next thing?
Yeah.
What should
So,
we talk about? I know there's some things we can't talk about yet, but yeah.
well, that is true. That is true. I mean, of the things that I can speak about, I mean, I'm in audition season, which as a freelancer, you're always in audition season. So,
Mhm.
hopefully the next exciting performance opportunity and company position. I mean, I've been at the Met for a while now, so I'm excited to kind of branch out and see what other things in addition to my work at the Met I can explore. But I really think putting a lot of my energy and time into Black Dance Changemakers, and I think building that community and making it something that is a resource that all Black dancers know to go to.
Mhm.
In the same way that we have incredible resources like IABD, which is something that I feel like all dancers, Black dancers know. I want Changemakers to be a resource that whenever dancers need community, they know where to go. So for me, a lot of my energy this year and beyond is really being intentional about growing that platform, growing that membership, but also growing our activism and community building within that platform. So I think that, yeah, my dancing and my activism, I feel like that's what I'm working on for eternity now. So
Okay. I
yeah.
love it. I love it. And then if we wanted to follow Antuan specifically, how do we follow you?
Yes, so you can follow me on Instagram at Antuan Byers, and you can also learn more about me at AntuanByers.com.
Okay. And if we want to follow Black Dance Changemakers, how do we follow them?
Yes, Black Dance Changemakers on Instagram and BlackDanceChangemakers.com.
Okay. Easy peasy. Easy peasy.
Easy.
Antoine, I want to play a game. It's called This or That. And
Okay.
so what's going to happen is I'm going to give you two scenarios, two words, two phrases, and you just tell me which one you better align with.
Okay, here we go.
Let's go. Let's go. I'll start off easy. I'll start off a little easy.
Okay.
New York pizza or LA tacos?
New York pizza because I prefer Texas tacos.
Okay. 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 Okay.
Yeah.
Because you're from Dallas, I can definitely ask you this. Whataburger or Chick-fil-A?
Whataburger, easy.
Why Whataburger?
Go to Whataburger and you'll see my.
That part, that part for sure. For
Also,
sure.
Chick-fil-A is a little inconsistent in their politics, so but that's another
Mm,
conversation. But
mhm.
yeah, Whataburger.
Gotcha. If you had an all expense paid vacation, would you rather go to the beach or to the mountains?
The beach. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it.
Why the beach?
The mountains just sound like work. If it's vacation, I mean, if we're sitting in the mountains, but that sounds like hiking and that's cool. But we said vacation, so I'll probably choose the beach.
Gotcha. If you were given money, would you rather to have $1 million home or $1 million in cash?
$1 million in cash.
Why? Why $1 million in cash?
Because I could get a cheaper apartment in New York and then use the other money for something else.
Absolutely hilarious. Okay. If you had a superpower, would you rather to be able to fly or to be invisible?
Probably fly. Yeah.
Why fly?
It feels like I will be able to be kind of anywhere I want to be, not instantly, but like there's always a road, at least physically, to any place on earth that I want to be. And I feel like with invisibility, I don't know. I feel like if I fly up high enough, you won't be able to see me. So I don't know. I feel like that's just kind of a way I could do both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question. Paris or South Africa?
Sorry, that was okay. I mean, I guess South Africa because it has Africa in it. But then I try to, after visiting, I would love to go to South Africa 100%, but then I try to head up the continent a little bit to explore up there as well, for sure.
Gotcha. Super easy, this or that, man. Just
that was fun.
Like to delve into the brain trust and see how you think, for sure. For sure. Well, Antuan, congrats for being one of our 40 under 40 again, man. And please keep doing what you're doing. And everybody, make sure that you support this brother. Make sure that you are you guys at 501c3? Black National Change Maker?
We're a sole proprietorship, but we are fiscally sponsored. So if people want to make donations, they're tax deductible. It's on our website. It's all there.
Exactly. So going right where I was asking for it. Make sure you donate. Make sure you send money. Make sure you follow what they're doing. And then let's make sure that we all as artists are coming together. I love what this brother's doing. This has been another episode of 40 Under 40, sponsored by Urban Arts Magazine. I am your host, Giles, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining. Peace.